June 6th, 2018 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Carla, would you please call the roll?
Fish.
Here.
Saltzman. Udaly.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. Now the message of the day.
All right. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during the City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is being said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations, will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Thank you. I'm so glad I don't have to read that anymore. I know you're thrilled too, right?
I'm wondering how long it will take before I have it memorized, but not yet.
Probably not
I
as
still
long
need
as
to
you
read the
think.
paper.
No, you did it. You did it brilliantly. All right. So before we get to the agenda at hand, there is one item we had to carry over from this morning's agenda. It is a second reading, so it will be quick, but we needed 4 people present. Carla, could you please read item 605, which is a carryover, a continuation from this morning?
Vacate a portion of Southeast Grant Street, west of Southeast Water Avenue, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
So this is a second reading. There's already been extensive presentation and testimony on this item. Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. All right, so we're back today to wrap up our work on the Central City 2035 plan. Just a reminder that the record is closed and that no further testimony will be accepted at this point. Carla, could you please read item 610?
Adopt the Central City 2035 plan, amend the comprehensive plan map, transportation system plan, Willamette Greenway Plan, Scenic Resources Protection Plan, Zoning Map, and Title 33. Authorize adoption of administrative rules, repeal and replace prior Central City plans and documents.
Joe, why don't you introduce this?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor. Joe Zender with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. So this first item today is the heart of the Central City Plan. It's most of the plan, the policies, the goals, the code that you've been working on diligently. And as the core of the plan, this has been, I just wanted to mention, it's been a major development, major effort to pull this plan together. Thousands of hours of the public's time, thousands of hours, thousands of decisions on big issues and small issues. And the reason that this level of effort was mounted for the Central City was not just because it's a special place, but because its success is essential for the success of the whole city. Like, there is a link between our Central City and the entire rest of the city. And that kind of success I'm talking about is the ability of the city to meet our goals to be prosperous, healthy, equitable, and resilient. So at the end of a project this large, especially, we can lose perspective on what we're accomplishing. And this is a major revision, a major tool put in place so that we're going to be able to accomplish these goals for all of Portland. So,
very good. With that, Carla, would you please call the roll?
Fish.
Well, I know we have a number of votes, but I think as Joe reminded us, this is the big one. So I want to take a moment to say a few things and thank a few people because this has been a long and actually fascinating process. I want to begin by thanking Sally Edmonds, Mindy Brooks, Rachel Hoy at BPS in particular, but also Joe Zender and all the people who throughout this process have taken the time to help me better understand the issues, the policy choices. And also want to thank Susan Anderson for the work that she did on this and during my entire service on this council. So I don't mean to leave anybody out on the staff side, but to everyone at BPS, thank you very much. You know, you do very difficult work. You do it very well. I think you've actually come up with the model about how to deal with complex issues with lots of amendments and moving pieces. And the cheat sheets we get and the briefings we get are really, in my opinion, best in class. So thank you very much for all the work that you do and have done to get us to this point. I want to thank my Caitlin Lovell and my team at the Bureau of Environmental Services for the work that they did, really drilling down on some of the environmental things that we've agreed to. And a number of them are really path-breaking. I mean, they're significant, not just locally, but nationally. And so I'm very proud that we've had a small role in that. I want to thank my colleagues. As long as I've been on the council, there have been people who are conspicuously smarter about land use and zoning issues than I am. And one of the joys of this job is learning from people that have different experiences, different history, who've served on regulatory bodies, who bring their own values and passion to our conversations. And while we reach consensus on while we reach consensus on many of the most important issues that came before us, we had some also passionate debates about some other issues, and I just appreciate the thought and care which all my colleagues bring to these kinds of discussions, and I'm proud to be on a council where people are so thoughtful about them. I'm not going to single out just my list of favorites, although there's a lot in here that I'm really proud of. I do want to say that that the person who's helped me the most throughout this is Jamie Dunphy. And I want to thank Jamie for all the work that he's done. And it's a big load on staff to have this. We have like 5 or 6 notebooks. I think I have further aggravated a chronic back problem carrying these things around from meeting to meeting. But Jamie's done a wonderful job being an interface, talking to the community, and then helping prep me for these meetings. So I'm really appreciative of Jamie's good work. I continue to believe that in the main, what we're trying to do here, starting with the West Quad plan, and then through to today, is we're trying to figure out a way to balance growth in a sensible way in this city. And you know, it's easy to say, well, we're going to put growth where we can accommodate it, like downtown and town centers and corridors and things like that. But while that is sort of the touchstone that we follow, it still requires very difficult choices and trade-offs. And sometimes there are winners and losers. And I will continue while I'm on council to want to focus height and density where it can be best accommodated. But I'm also learned through this process that you can't that we're reaching a point where there just aren't easy choices about where we build. That in fact, we have to think about the city as a whole. And one of the reasons I think that's important is that if we really believe in equity and opportunity, then there has to be a chance for every neighborhood to be open to people who want to live there regardless of their income or their circumstance. We'll have obviously more to say on that as we move to the less controversial items we have on our agenda starting this fall, like the residential infill project. I have learned on this council that one of the things we generally do well is once we've identified a problem and a glitch in the system, we are pretty effective at addressing it and fixing it. Now, in the world we live in, that and 250 gets you on the max, but, or I better check with Maurice on that, but I think that's right. But I think in government, we have to acknowledge that there are always going to be flaws that we identify. and glitches. The question is, do we then take the time to fix them and to get them right going forward? And I think one of the things that we learned a couple years ago is that we had been for too long neglecting a big look at our boards and commissions and the burdens we were putting on people. We hadn't asked some basic questions about, are we giving people the tools they need to be successful? And are they getting the support? And do we have uniform standards like bylaws and other things? And most importantly, do we have clear rules about conflicts of interest and when they have to be disclosed? And through this process, we've actually been able to do a pretty significant upgrade of how we look at boards and commissions citywide, which I think is very important, because if we're going to demand a lot of our community volunteers, we ought to make sure that their time is respected and valued. And one way we do that is we're clear about what role they have, what their responsibility is, what kind of support they're going to get from us, and at the end of the day, it's up to us then to weigh the advice we get and make our best judgment. So I'm proud that through the course of this, we've also had a chance to do a big look at boards and commissions and make some changes, some very significant changes. And I want to thank Judy Prosper and some other folks in particular for working on that. Finally, I continue to feel a certain amount of regret that this extraordinary process ended on what I consider to be somewhat of a sour note around Old Town Chinatown. And I don't say that because I'm a sore loser, although Randy Leonard once told someone that was being nasty to me, he said, I can deal with sore losers, I don't like sore winners, which I thought was a very great insight. But I regret that we sort of ended on what I consider a sour note, because Old Town Chinatown was one of a host of very complicated things that we've worked on. And I know that it has provoked some passion in the community. And you know, I reserve the right to say, as I continue to believe, that we got it wrong. But that is the beauty of our system. We have 5 people who make the best judgment call that they can, and I respectfully disagree with 2 of my colleagues. That doesn't prevent us the next day from getting up and working effectively on a host of other things. I just think personally we got this wrong, and I wish we hadn't rushed it, and I wish we hadn't added 4 additional blocks, and I think it was a mistake. But again, I don't believe in Monday morning quarterbacking indefinitely, just for a little while. And I wish that was an issue that we could revisit. It's not in the cards. But I do feel it's important because a number of people have misrepresented my position, and a number of people have expressed a lack of confidence in the future council. I do think it's important to put on the record something equivalent to what the mayor put on the record the other day. And I thought he was very eloquent in essentially stating his values and what you could expect from him while he served on this council. And he put down some markers and said, you know, here's what I will be looking for. And I get that Lansu Chinese Garden is a city treasure. It's actually a national treasure, a global treasure. And the mayor said, you know, I'm not going to be cavalier about this issue when it comes up. And it comes to council from landmarks or wherever, and I understand the concern. So I make the same commitment. My hope is I get to serve the next 4.5 years. Some people, my joke is, you're stuck with me for 4.5 years. But my commitment is, over the next 4.5 years, if there is development proximate to the Lansu Chinese Garden, I commit that I will be vigilant in working with the community to make sure there's no adverse impact. And to confirm, I hope, with some of my friends that this is not something that is just a passing fancy, because I have a long record of being a friend and supporter of the Lansu Chinese Garden. I just want to take a moment to reflect on the fact that we have existing code that actually, when you revisit it, is quite promising. And I have checked with Lindley that I can say a few of these things, because this is not putting something new in the record. I'm just citing to the existing code. And so I'm citing to existing law. But, you know, going back to 1985, we've had some requirements that dealing with shadows and studies. And we've had standards that have been in place. In 1988, we expanded those standards to open spaces in the central city, and we did a couple of things that I think were important. Today's code is similar to 1988, but it's also been updated to include some additional restrictions. But even if that did not give someone solace, I think it's worth noting that that's not the only tool in our kit. The design review process allows for consideration of shadow impacts, even if the shadow standard is met. Let me say that again. The design review process allows consideration of the shadow impact, even if the shadow standard is met. BDS, Bureau of Development Services, and the Design Commission have often expanded on the zoning code standard when development is adjacent to open spaces. And there's a rich history of us doing that, and I hope we continue. The Central City Fundamental Design Guidelines are used both by the Design Commission and the Landmarks Commission. Guideline B5 reads, quote, make plazas, parks, and open spaces successful. I think that if a plaza, park, or open space was deprived of light for much of the day, we'd hardly be able to claim that's a successful space. The guidelines, by the way, apply to all blocks surrounding the Lansu Chinese Garden. We also have the new Chinatown, Japantown Historic District guidelines. And while the garden is outside of the historic district, there is, after all, guideline A6, which states, quote, reflect the desired landscape character of the district in rights of way at building entries and special places. I think I know what they were referring to when they said special places. And specific to the garden, the description of the guideline states where Northwest 3rd Avenue buildings face the Lansu Chinese Garden, or where Northwest 4th Avenue buildings are in proximity to the Chinatown gate, providing respectful, contextual responses to these important places. That's pretty powerful language that even I can understand. Under the River District design guidelines, guideline B5-2, get lost in a lot of alphabet here and numbers, but B5-2, which is used by the Design Commission in reviewing projects within 400 feet of the garden, quote, strengthen the significance of the classical Chinese garden, end quote. I think I know what that means, and I will tell you that I won't be shy about interpreting that in a way to the great advantage of our treasure there. Now, I could go on because there are additional things that we've discovered and researched with the help of the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. But Mayor and colleagues, I think there's an additional opportunity, which we will not decide today, but I think it would be smart of us to address this in short order as part of a work plan. The Bureau of Planning and Sustainability will be updating its Central City Fundamental Design Guidelines. That is an opportunity to revisit and update a number of design guidelines, and to do it the right way, which is with lots of public input and consideration of trade-offs and other type of things. And I hope that we have an opportunity later this summer to consider whether that should be in the work plan that we ask BPS to undertake over the next year and a half. So, to be very clear, under the existing standards, if there is development proximate to the Lansu Chinese Garden that has an impact on shadows during different times of the day, this commissioner, as long as I have the honor of serving here, will be vigilant in enforcing our rules for the benefit of a garden that we consider a treasure of this city. And while that may not be satisfactory to some, it's the most significant commitment that I can make, given the fact that I do not control a majority of the council on the question of height. And I respect my colleagues on where they landed. But the next best thing I can do is take that position going forward. And during the balance of my service on the council, I'm making a public commitment to do so. So with that, and I'm sorry to spend so much time on it, but I think it's important, because I thought the mayor made an eloquent statement to that similar effect recently, and I thought it was important that the public heard from a number of us to that end. I'm proud of the work we've done. It is not always our most heralded work. There'll be a one-sentence reference in sources say that we got this thing done, but it is probably one of the most core things we do. And after all, the two parts of our job that I think are so fundamental are having a vision for what Portland will be in the future, and then having the skill set to get us from here to there. And I think to be good in these jobs, you have to have a little bit of a vision and a little bit of the project manager side of your brain to be effective. And here what we're doing is setting a vision. I think it's a bold vision. It's a green vision. It's a vision that I'm proud to lend my name to, and today I'm pleased to vote aye.
You, Daly?
Well, this has been a crash course in planning. I'm going to be applying for some college credit for this. I want to thank the BPS staff for always being so ready and willing to brief me on the many issues that arose during this process and to quickly answer my many, many questions. So thank you. Thank my staff for bearing with me and for all the community members that gave input on this issue. I really think that we as a body share the same goals and values as many of our community members do, and we don't necessarily agree on how to get there. But I think this is a reasonable roadmap for the time being. It's rare for Commissioner Fish and I to disagree, which has come as some surprise to me, I'm going to admit. It's probably best for our street cred if every once in a while we don't disagree and the public knows that, you know, this isn't a rigged system. We take principled stands and we have respectful disagreements. And I just want to say that I join him in committing to protecting the garden from any detrimental impact by development on the adjacent blocks. We are not engineers, we are not architects. I wasn't comfortable with restricting development potential on this block more than we are today. I mean, to be clear, we chose to decrease the height less than we had planned, it was decreasing from over 300 to 160. We settled at 2. I think it's in the best interests of the neighborhood and the business community down there for this site the development potential to be maximized while protecting the garden. Commissioner Fish already detailed many of the safeguards that are already in place. And the fact is, this site was never developed to its full height, despite the fact that they could have almost doubled the height that we're allowing them today. So I feel like some of the fears are very likely to be unwarranted, and I know that this council at least is committed to protecting the garden. So if this process is anything like the budget process, I'll see you guys in September to start talking about 2070. It was really an honor and a privilege to get to participate in this process. And when I would get bogged down in the details, I would try to think 100 years out, try to think about a time when, I don't mean to be morbid, but we will all be gone. We will probably be forgotten by anyone who is not related to us. But our fingerprints are going to be all over the city. And I can only hope and really strive toward ensuring that the choices we make now are choices that are beneficial to Portland 100 years from now. Hopefully Donald Trump will not still be our president. We'll see. So, yeah, I think I'm done. I sometimes have to write on these tiny little pieces of paper and get a little lost in thought. So thank you again, and I vote aye.
Fritz.
Let me start by thanking Director Susan Anderson and her staff from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. All of you have done an amazing job, and I'm glad that many of you are gathered here today. I'm going to specifically acknowledge staff who work most closely with my team and with me: Joe Zender, Sally Edmonds, Rachel Hoy, Mindy Brooks, Mark Asnes, and Brandon Spencer Hartle, and also Hilary Adam in the Bureau of Development Services. Thanks to the Planning and Sustainability Commission, the Design Review Commission, and the Historic Landmarks Commission. Thanks to Brett Horner and Parks Bureau staff. Thanks to Claire Adamsick and Tim Crail on my team, and formerly Tom Bizot. We've been doing this for a really, really long time. And finally, thank you to all the community members who served on strategic advisory committees for the original quadrant plans, which informed this work, to community members at large who took the time to submit testimony throughout these past 9 months and for the past 4 years. And thank you in particular for those of you who are here today to observe this hour. With the adoption of the Central City Plan today, we will increase housing supply by 2,000 units, and that's in addition to the 37,000 units of capacity that are currently zoned in the Central City. This brings the total zone's capacity citywide to 249,000 units citywide, 39,000 of which are in the citywide. That's additional units. Another accomplishment of the Central City Plan, it will allow density transfers from open space zoned properties, thanks to Joe Zender and Lauren King and others in the city's attorney's office and everybody who's working on that project. This opens up an untapped marketplace for city-owned properties and pairing them with developers seeking to purchase additional floor area ratio or building capacity. This program is in development, will include a community stakeholder conversation about what community benefits should be included in density transfer agreements, and I'm very excited by that. Concerns were raised by the community about conflicts of interest on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. My staff and I did a careful explanation of conflict of interest around zoning changes and height allowances, looking for whether any developer represented on an advisory body was inappropriately rewarded with height increases. We found there were no conflicts with the possible exception of the Morrison Bridgehead property. Thank you to Mindy Brooks and Sally Edmonds in particular for your work allaying council's concern about conflict of interest. But for the changes made this year, I would have been happy to support the whole plan. Sadly, the latest amendments to the plan over the past 5 months have the appearance of supporting particular property owners to the detriment of others. We are in dire need of affordable housing options that serve all Portlanders, particularly those who are low income and at risk of displacement. These options need not come at such a high price as the destruction of the unique cultural and historic assets of the new Chinatown, Japantown Historic District and the Lansu Chinese Garden. Council's decision to increase height on 5 of the 10 historic district blocks undermines years of public process and recently developed design guidelines to right-size the district, design guidelines which were designed with 125 feet as the maximum height in mind. Thank you to the Planning and Sustainability Commission for recommending the 125 feet. This action violates the comprehensive plan policies regarding historic and cultural resources, specifically or including Policy 4.48 encourages development that fills in vacant and underutilized gaps within the established urban fabric while preserving and complementing historic resources. Policy 4.49 refine base zoning in historic districts to take into account the character of the historic resources of the districts. It also violates a number of central city policies, including Policy 5.19, Historic Resources and Districts, enhance the identity of historically, culturally, and architecturally significant buildings and spaces while promoting contextually sensitive infill development on vacant and surface parking lots. And Old Town Chinatown District Policy 1.0T-3, Cultural Assets, support the protection and enhancement of the rich cultural and multi-ethnic history and diversity of Old Town Chinatown, including its unique physical characteristics, cultural and arts institutions, community organizations, and mix of businesses. To be clear, this is not just about garden visitors enjoying late afternoon sun. This is about the health and sustainability of a fragile botanical collection with 270 special and rare species. It's about allowing enough sunlight on the koi pond so that the fish can thrive and the lotus flowers don't go dormant. It's also about protecting a unique cultural asset and an urban sanctuary for humans, birds, and other life forms. The time to protect Lansu Chinese Garden for sure was now. Considering the council has changed its mind on 3 significant zoning issues in just the past 5 months, I have no confidence that a future council will dare to say no to a 200-foot building shading Lansu Chinese Garden. Commissioner Saltzman even proposed an asterisk not allowing the Design or Landmarks Commission to deny an application of 200 feet. Ironically, with our sister city presentation coming to council tomorrow, I believe this gesture disrespects our friendship with our sister city, Suzhou. This final hour catering to single developer requests erodes the city's investment in the historic Chinese and Japanese American community in Portland, undermines the role of the Historic Landmarks Commission, and ignores the guiding principles we supported for this fragile historic district. So therefore, I'm sorry, but I can't put my name down as supporting it. No.
Wheeler.
I'd like to read a prepared statement, and then I'm going to go off off my script and share some personal thoughts. Central City 2035 lays the groundwork for Portland to continue to be a thriving economic, cultural, educational, and recreational hub for the region for the next 20-plus years. It carries on the tradition of previous plans that resulted in transforming Harborfront Drive into Waterfront Park, a parking garage into the Pioneer Courthouse Square, and brownfields into the Pearl District and South Waterfront. What this plan does differently is that it sets the stage for more affordable housing, increased resilience in the face of climate change, more and better jobs through a synergistic mix of old and new industry in the Central East Side, better protection of our iconic scenic views, and deeper focus on our greatest natural feature, the Willamette River. I want to thank the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability for guiding the city through a thorough planning process over the past 7 years, from concept plan, quadrant plans, and several drafts of the one that's here before us today. You spent a lot of time working with the stakeholders in the community to make sure that Central City 2035 embodies the best thinking and planning that Portlanders have to offer. I appreciate staff's knowledge and experience of the Central City and their understanding of the issues that need addressing, their creativity, their research, their analytical skills that allowed us to find the best solutions to address the issues, and their ability, maybe more importantly than anything else, to work through these issues, many of which are complex, many of which balance different competing values, many of which are highly charged and often emotional. You worked through those issues with the public, the Planning and Sustainability Commission, and the City Council. In particular, I want to express my gratitude to Susan Anderson. She's at a conference this week, so could not be here today, and her team, including Joe Zender, Sally Edmonds, Rachel Hoy, Mindy Books, Troy Doss, Nicholas Starrin, Mike Raggett, Mark Asnes, Debbie Bischoff, and Brandon Spencer Hartle. Thank you very much for your dedication to this process. I also want to thank all of Team Wheeler, past and present, especially Kyle Chiswick, Nathan Howard, Andrea Valderrama, and Michelle Plambeck. Thank you for your leadership on this. Now I'm jumping off my script a bit, and I can already hear my team cringing. To Commissioner Udaley's point, if we all agreed on everything, you should be very concerned. I think it is actually very important that we bring different life experiences, different perspectives, different points of view, to some degree, maybe even some different constituencies to the table. And so I second what she said. I think it is healthy for the democracy, and I think it is healthy for the debate that we have these conversations. That's thing number one. Thing number two, people always say, where are the leaders? And I will accept myself because I want to shout out my colleagues here. There is nothing about this plan that any elected official would ever voluntarily step up and do. There are some jobs in politics where you get to pick your issues, you get to pick your battles, you get to pick your messaging, and then you stick your head up and you do what you need to do, and then you go back down, and you can avoid a whole bunch of incoming mortars and bombshells. That doesn't happen here, particularly in a planning process where we are defining the future, the look, the feel, the character, the priorities of this city for the next 20 years. Every decision we made in this plan was controversial. The process itself, in many regards, was controversial. And yet, people all across the country, and frankly, we've had people coming here from other parts of the world to watch this process and see how it unfolds and how you create not unanimity, but a community consensus on the direction forward, the path forward. And I think that's really special about this process. Yes, the Lanzhou Chinese garden issue dominated the last few conversations. But think about this for a moment. This started off with a big picture. We are growing as a city. We cannot stop the growth. People are going to continue to come here. This is going to continue to be a bigger city. But we all acknowledged there are better places than others for height and density. That's as far as the happy talking points go. After that, it's all trade-offs. It's all making tough decisions. It's all about vision. And it's about selling that vision. I want you to know this about the Lanzhou Chinese garden. I'm a little sad about something my wife said the other day. She said, we're probably not welcome there anymore. And the reason that's sad to me is I chose that location of all places in this city to ask her to marry me. I care deeply about the Lanzhou Chinese garden. I have an honest disagreement about all of these checks and balances and codes that prior city councils created to help us answer these questions. Our legal team, our planning and sustainability bureau, our zoning experts. I trust them. They're experts. And I sent to you colleagues a letter, and Nick hit on many of the finer points, and I'm appreciative of his putting these on the record. There are many checks and balances. We as a council, I hope we have made very clear, it is a very important asset to all of us. And Commissioner Fish used the term vigilance. I second it. And Commissioner Udaley said this was important to her. I second that. And I respectfully disagree with my colleagues who said we are destroying the asset. I do not buy that. I don't agree with that. And I want to say one more thing. It's important that we hear each other. And I will again offer to come and speak to the board at the Lanzhou Chinese Garden with our legal team, with our planning and sustainability team, and walk you through why I feel confident. And you may, at the end of the day, still disagree with that, and that's fair. You have every right to be you and to take the facts and weigh them as you will and come to your own conclusions. But let's acknowledge a reality here. Before this process started, we didn't really know what we had, did we? I don't think most people in this city knew that before this process started, you could build a building next door to Lanzhou that was 425 feet tall. After I cast my vote in a second, you can only build to 200 feet. We are more than reducing by half the height. And yet, I am being told I am destroying an important historic asset in this community. I don't buy it. Not for a second. Nor should you. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next, let's vote on the River Place ordinance. Carla, could you please read item 611?
Yes. Amend the Central City Plan District of the zoning code to increase bonus heights and impose master plan requirements in certain River Place sub-areas.
Any further discussion before I ask Carla to call the roll? Any further questions? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
We've had extensive discussions about this, and we've all made extensive statements on the record. I think the particular feature of this action that I appreciate the most is the requirement of a master planning process, because I think that's our insurance policy, that we have a chance to get this right. Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
The council elected to make a decision based on the promise of a particular development proposal by a particular property owner, ignoring the adopted policies regarding step down to the river. No.
Wheeler.
I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 612, the ordinance that applies to the area outside of the central city. Carla, could you please read that ordinance?
Adopt the Central City 2035 Plan, Volume 2A, Part 3, Environmental and Scenic. Amend the Portland zoning map and Portland zoning codes for environmental overlay zones and scenic resource zones.
Any further discussion, colleagues?
Mayor,
Carla.
you
Commissioner Fish.
introduced this as being outside of the central city?
That's correct.
Not all of them.
I just want to make sure we're voting on the same
sorry.
thing.
Item 612, correct, yes.
Is that what I just read?
Adopt the Central City
Yes.
2035 Plan, Volume 2A.
Yes, that's the one I just read. 612, S612.
Correct. Any further discussion? Nick, do you have a question for the team?
I thought I understood you to say this applied to outside of the Central City 2035. I just want to
Yes,
clarify.
Mindy Brooks, Planning Sustainability. Yeah, in order to implement some of the policies around vegetation management, we needed to address some of the codes that will affect areas outside of the central city as well as inside the central city. And so since these codes affect everywhere in Portland, that's why it's called outside.
Okay, that's very important because the title would not lead you to that conclusion. The mayor's introduction does. Now you've reconciled them, so thank you.
Okay.
But Mindy, just to be clear,
Okay.
it does include the changes on the scenic resources within the central city.
Yeah, it does. It includes
Thank you.
both.
Any further questions before I let her go? She already ran away. I was smart of her. No, we're good. I think we're good. Carla, could you please call the roll?
Yes. All right. And for clarification, I believe the substitute does have a different title on it, and that's the title that should have been on the agenda. Is that correct? No? Okay, just.
Thank you, Carla, for throwing me a lifeline.
I just, I see now. Okay. Fish.
There is a lot in what we have worked on together that is really visionary around the environment. And it may or may not be in this section, but since I want to do a tip of the hat to the environment, bird safety design, mandatory eco-roofs, a pretty aggressive policy on greenways and setbacks and the public benefit of access to the river, and the list could go on and on. I appreciate the values that my colleagues have brought to this discussion. I appreciate the briefings I've had from the Bureau of Environmental Services and from Planning and Sustainability. I appreciate people like Mike Hauk and Bob Salinger, who for a long time have really been pushing us to do more and better. And I know that on a number of these things, we won't end up being number one on the biophilic cities list, but we'll be in the top 10. And I think it's important that we continue to lead and not follow if we really.
Came to the microphone to answer our questions because her skill, along with the team at Planning and Sustainability, in identifying the view corridors, nothing short of spectacular. Absolutely amazing. I am in awe of your ability to not only tell me the information, but to make it clear to me. And so thank you very, very much for that. I also appreciate the work of Brett Horner and other staff at the Parks Bureau, working with community partners to address concerns from the greenway setback and shallow water habitat to the necessary tree trimming to preserve views of Mount Hood from the Japanese garden. Thanks in particular to Bob Salinger from the Audubon Society, who was particularly helpful in providing conservation-focused policy suggestions, which is a very polite way of saying pushing us all in the right direction and telling us exactly what should be in the code. So I appreciate the Audubon Society and all of their supporters. We failed to protect a view of Mount Adams from Upper Hall. Doing so would have had very limited negative development impacts, and it's currently the only view of three mountains accessible on foot from downtown Portland. But the reason I can't support this is because the plan fails to designate a single protected view of Mount Hood from the waterfront. There are currently many, and there will be none. This is a missed opportunity, particularly at Salmon Street Springs, but to protect one of the key cultural and wayfinding assets named in the Scenic Resources Policy. No.
Wheeler.
Thank you for the hard work, the great work. I think this fundamentally moves the city forward in many positive ways around the environment. Commissioner Daly, I share your sense of competition. We can always catch up if needs be the case. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Sorry, I have to say that. Next item, Carla, could you please read item number 613, the resolution that relates to the action items and the urban design framework?
613, adopt the Central City 2035 Plan, action charts, performance targets, and urban design diagrams.
Thank you. Carla, could you call the roll unless there's any other questions? I don't see any. Please call the roll, Carla.
Fish.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
I'm very happy to enthusiastically support this one. Hooray! Because I really do appreciate the work you've done. And in fact, it's not coincidental that this is the one that I can most enthusiastically support, because it's attention to detail, it's setting out the action charts, the performance targets, the design diagrams. It's a really detailed and necessary addendum to all the other work that's been done. So thanks again to your entire team for all of your good work. Aye.
Wheeler.
While the legislative process for Central City 2035 is complete after this vote, there's a lot of important work that is obviously ahead in order to complete the plan. Volume 5A, the exciting Volume 5A, which I know you've all read, or you may be waiting for it to come out on DVD. I don't know, but either way, Volume 5A lists hundreds of actions that are necessary to carry out the various components of this plan. And I'll certainly be working with my staff to help prioritize those next steps. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Carla, could you please read item 614, which is the Green Loop resolution title?
Adopt the Central City 2035 Plan Green Loop Concept Report.
Very good. Carla, could you please call the roll on the resolution?
Fish.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Thank you to the community partners, Commissioner Saltzman and his staff, Director Leah Treat, and the Portland Bureau of Transportation staff for your leadership and vision. Excuse me. This project has been a great community collaboration. I look forward to seeing it come to fruition. Aye.
Wheeler.
Well, as I said last week, I think the Green Loop is one of the key legacies of the Central City 2035 plan. It's not only going to provide a safe route around the city for pedestrians and bicycles, but I think it's also going to create many, many new iconic places for people to gather in our community. So I'm very excited about it, and I vote aye. The resolution is adopted. Okay, so that concludes our work on the Central City 2035 plan. Council was first briefed on this project last July. We have now held 7 public hearings on a variety of subjects. Altogether, the plan has been in front of us 15 times, including today, and that says nothing about the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of work that our bureaus and interested folks in the community have put in that led up to this day. Thanks again to the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and all the other incredible city staffers who worked so hard on this and to all of the Portlanders out there who contributed their time and energy into creating this amazing blueprint for our central city. Thank you to all of you. And with that, we are adjourned.
6:05.